Happy New Year, Sunny Hostin.
Happy New Year, Brian.
This is very exciting to have you back. We're back on the behind the table again. Let's talk about your holiday break because you had a pretty good one.
I had a great holiday break. 13 of us.
13.
So it was my
You don't travel light.
No, it was my family.
Mm-hmm.
So my family and my closest friends, we all rented an Airbnb in the middle of San Juan, in a place called Santurce. And I was a little nervous about it at first.
Have you done the Airbnb thing? Because I get nervous about it in general.
I have. I do Vrbo. I do Airbnb. For me, it's a little bit better because when you're at
when you got 13 people, yeah.
No, it's just that, when you're a public person, when you're at a hotel, you don't have much privacy.
Oh, that's true. That makes sense.
So you walk around and everybody seems to watch the view wherever I go.
Sure. I got bride guys all over me when I go out.
I know you do.
Yeah,
I know you do.
Thing.
And so this is just a nice break. It's a true break for me.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. Like we were all together, and our kids are like kidults now. They're not really adulting, and they're not kids either.
They all do their own vacation, right?
They had a separate vacation. Like, my son likes extreme sports, so does my daughter. And so they were surfing and hydrofoiling. And I was just like, laying on the beach, and I was laying on a rooftop deck and doing stuff like that. And it was definitely a safer option because driving around an island that they're not that familiar with.
Sure,
I mean, they
scary.
are, but it's a little scary. So this was right in the city. They were able to walk around, and it was probably one of the best New Year's I have had in a long, long time. It was really super great.
You're generally like a New Year's Eve party person, or do you?
No, I kind of like to chill out on New Year's Eve.
Okay.
But everyone...
New Year's Eve is for amateurs. I get it.
Yes,
yeah.
and everyone else, though, wants to party. So we had a house party, and it was so great because we were with our kids. They didn't want to go out. Everybody... It was perfect. We popped champagne. We sort of toasted each other. We were dancing. We were playing dominoes. We were, playing cards. The kids were playing Uno. It was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I also, visited with friends that live on the island. And my highlight was sort of visiting Choco Bar, which is this chocolate-based restaurant owned by the Cortez family, and they're friends of mine. And they are sort of like the Hershey family of Puerto Rico.
Right.
There's almost no Puerto Rican family that I know of that didn't grow up using their chocolate bars to make hot chocolate. Like it was a staple in my grandmother's kitchen, and it's a staple in my kitchen. So it was just really cool to be in Puerto Rico where it was founded, and they're doing all this incredible literacy work with the kids in Puerto Rico. Like
this is what you brought the hosts' gifts, right?
Yeah. And it was interesting. Our photographer Lou, he said, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that since my grandmother's house." And I gave him one too, and he was just like so happy about
that's great.
it. Yeah. So
that's
it really
cool.
It really is a very, very Puerto Rican tradition.
I love it. All right. So the other thing that's happened is you're now a full semester of being an empty nester. How's it going? Does having trips like this make it easier?
The trip was made it much easier because I had my little ones with me. They're big ones now, but I had them with me, and they wanted to spend time with us.
That's great.
So that part was really cool. I'm finally getting used to it. Like I'm getting used to the idea. Manny has been used to it. He's been great. Like he's totally fine. As I mentioned, he's like, making coffee in his underwear. He's totally cool with it.
Sure.
I was struggling, and I'm much better now. Like I have more time to write. So I'm writing 2 new books. I also have more time to binge watch television.
Yay.
I just finished both seasons of Lioness. Fantastic. And I also have more time to travel a little bit.
That's great.
Like I spend the night in the city more than I ever would have. Like just things like that. I'm hanging out with my girlfriends that are also empty nesters a little more than I had ever been able to. So it's kind of cool.
I'm a little bit behind you. So, but
yeah.
I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, so we're still very much in it.
Yeah.
But watching you go through it has made me start to mentally prepare for what my wife is going to go through, especially. I think it's going to be very hard for her.
You've got to prepare because it took me by surprise.
Yeah.
I think I was telling you, Brian, like that's something people don't prepare you for. They prepare you for, what to expect when you're expecting.
Yep.
They prepare you for high school, middle school, college, exams,
Even
all this
death.
stuff,
Yeah.
even death. But they never say, okay, and then you've spent your whole life or a significant portion of your life defined by the role of mother. And you're like growing these, what you hope to be really awesome human beings, and then they leave.
Yeah.
You're by yourself.
That's big.
I just wish more people talked about it.
Is there something you know you had wished? Is there something you wish you had known when you started this process?
Yeah,
That you know now?
I really wish I had been prepared for it. Like it took me past 6 months to really prepare for it, and so I think I would have handled their senior years differently. I don't know. It's hard to say, but
It's such a whirlwind at the time.
it's such a whirlwind. But I wish someone would have told me, listen, this is going to be a life transition, because it truly is a life transition. And if you're not prepared for it, you don't know what feelings you're going to have. And I had feelings of like kind of grief a little bit.
Well, speaking of transitions,
Yes.
at the beginning of last year, you told me a story about your father giving you some advice where he said that joy is an act of resistance.
Yes.
And you said you were going to channel that through 2024.
Yeah.
First, maybe explain what that meant and tell me
Okay.
if you were successful doing it.
Well, I'm a news junkie, have always been, current events junkie, as you know, Brian.
Yeah.
And, sometimes the more you read and the more you know, not only about what's going on in this country, but what's going on around the world in terms of geopolitics, it can be very stressful.
It can.
And so my family was commenting about how hyper aware I was of everything, and it felt like an existential crisis in a sense. And I was writing a lot about it and journaling about it a lot. And I was on vacation at my dad's house. He lives in Florida. And he just said, joy is an act of resistance. Like, be more joyful in response to everything that's going on. Like, try to see the good that's happening. Try to see what you can do in the world to make things better and to make things a little more joyful. And I took that seriously. And protect your peace is part of it too. And I did that. And as you know, I got off of Twitter because it became such a dumpster fire, in
I've
my
been thinking
opinion.
about it a little bit.
Yeah,
it's hard.
The trolling, the echo chamber, it's just really disheartening. It's just keyboard, courage and these keyboard warriors.
And it's not reflective of reality. And
It's
that's really
not.
the
There's
thing.
like less than, I think, 20% of Americans, and even around, I think Americans at least, are on Twitter. And after 20% is like 8% are the loudest voices. And so I got rid of Twitter. I disabled comments on my social media accounts. And oh my gosh, it's like so freeing. I mean, there are times when you have to come in to tell me what's happening, which is very different for me. I still, of course, read the newspaper. I actually get the newspaper delivered to my office here. And I read a lot of news, but I don't mess around with that kind of stuff. And I have protected my peace, and I'm going to continue to do it in 2025.
Yeah. Is there something else you're channeling for 2025?
Writing more. I really like being an author.
That's great.
It's really
Such an accomplishment.
Thank
my
you.
goodness.
It's really a great thing for me. And so I'm writing a book about witches. I think
very
I told
excited
you.
about this. Yes.
And I'm writing another beach series. It's something that the publisher wanted, and
Unrelated to the originals?
yes.
Or is there any kind of...
It's
a different universe?
It's a summer series surrounding historically Black beaches, beach communities, but different characters, different places.
But there could be a crossover. It's potentially in the same world.
Potentially,
Okay.
but
I'm very interested in continuity.
yeah, potentially. So I'm really excited about it. So I'm gonna do a lot more of that. And my first trilogy is still being made into a series, with Amazon.
Which is a lot of work,
And
I know, but that's exciting.
it is a lot of work, Brian. So I'm like
Yep.
reviewing scripts and editing scripts and stuff like that, and looking at casting. And so that's been a longer process than I thought it was going to be, but we'll get it right, and I think it's going to be fantastic. So I'm excited about that.
We had a conversation on the show today about the HB1 visas.
Yeah.
And it kind of it got a little bit in the weeds, but
did.
the
And it went all over the place.
It went all over the place. But the core of the conversation, I think, was this comment by Vivek about America needing more tiger moms. And that's something that's come up over the years here on the show. Whoopi's point was that not everyone can prioritize education, but it was a priority for you.
It was.
It's a priority for I would say, it's funny, my mom watches the show every day, and she texted me during it, and she goes, I think your wife is a tiger mom. And I said, she's close. I think she's
Heather
close.
is.
Yeah.
Of course she is. No, listen, my mom was a tiger mom.
Yeah.
My dad was, I don't even know if there's a tiger dad title, but he certainly would meet that requirement, that criteria rather. I was always told that education is the great equalizer. As you know, I grew up very poor and in poverty in the Bronx projects, but I was smart, you know, and granted, not everyone has the same gifts, but I did have that gift, and I got skipped a grade, and I was in high school at 12 and, you know, college at 16.
We don't talk about that enough. I find it fascinating that you were in high school at 12.
No one should do it. It's just a mistake, socially awkward. But
you turned out okay.
Well, yeah, but I'm still a little bit of a weirdo. But I got to tell you, it changed my life. I would not be sitting here without the education. And so my father also said to me, and my mother especially, your average must be excellent because you are a woman of color in this country. I mean, that was the real deal. You know, I grew up in the late 60s, 70s. And you know, racism, institutionalized racism is a real thing in this country. And so I instilled in my kids that they had to be the best. They had to work twice as hard to get half as far. And it's a credit to them. I don't know that it's a credit to my mothering or my parenting.
But
and
they
Manny's
push back
parenting.
on that? Just as a parent, I'm interested. Like they embraced that always.
They embraced it. They wanted to be the best. And, you know, I have results. You know, I don't know that they'll, you know, become billionaires or be able to support themselves. But, you know, Gabriel's graduating from Harvard in the spring and Paloma's in her freshman year at Cornell. And they both are getting A's.
Did they ever rebel? Did you ever rebel against that as a kid? That's great. I went through such a rebellious phase in high school and everything else.
I followed my parents' advice because I had seen how they struggled for me to succeed. And I know that there are people that get opportunities that are perhaps not as educated as I am and perhaps not as talented, but this playing field is not level. So you've got to try to make it as level as possible for yourself and for your future.
It's great. It's great parenting for you, and it's great parenting by your parents because I think it is something
it's worked for us.
Adolescents rebelling and pushing back on that happens. I mean, my wife, similar to you, didn't do that, was very made sure that, you know, grades were very important to her. She worked hard. She would beat herself up over one missed question on a test, too. Things like that. I kind of, you know, I pushed boundaries. I cut classes. I did all those things. And it worked out for me.
Yeah, it worked out.
I got it together and when I needed to, and I did well on tests and all that kind of stuff. But I worry about my kids because I want them to follow the other path, not mine.
I just think it's really, you know, I guess it depends on the kid, but you're raising good human beings.
Right.
And I think that with structure and discipline, you know, they do the right thing.
Yeah.
I was funny. I was talking to Gabriel over vacation and I'm like, okay, what's the plan? What's the plan? You're graduating in May. The plan is not to hang your Harvard degree in your room at home, right?
No.
Like that's not the plan. And he was just staring at me like, well, I'm waiting. He's waiting here from Fulbright, whether or not he got a Fulbright scholarship. And so, but less than like 1% of people get that. That's not a good plan.
No.
So I was like, that's not your plan.
The fact that it's even on the table is incredible, but yes.
You know, it is. But I was like, that's not a good plan. And he said, well, I have several job offers. And I was like, but you don't seem excited about them. So that's not a plan either. And I said, you've got to take the GMATs. You want to go to business school, you got to apply now so that you have your plan B. Like that's very important to me. And then actually I started saying, you know what? I don't even know how you're doing in school. I've never seen any of your grades. Do you have the grades to go? And then he showed me all of his A's. And so now I'm like laying low right now because I got embarrassed and he embarrassed me and shamed me. So he's doing really well and he doesn't have, he is now going to apply to business school.
At what point did you know you wanted to be an attorney?
Well, my mother forced me to be an attorney, but I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. Actually, I wanted to be Carol Jenkins and, you know, that kind of thing. But I was told that no one looked like me on television at the time, which is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And she said, you like to argue. You should go to law school. But that was actually her dream. She took the LSATs and everything.
You did fall in love with it at one point.
I'm still in love with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, you know, mothers know best. She knew that was a perfect fit for me.
Right.
She knew that before I even knew it myself.
Because I think it is rare to know early what you want to do. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do too.
Manny knew. Yeah, Manny knew he wanted to be a doctor.
It's really a gift.
It is a gift. And my mom gave me that gift. Like she definitely knew before I knew, But sitting in my first law school class, I was like, oh, okay, yeah,
this is it.
This
yep.
is it.
That's
this
great.
Makes sense.
All right, before we're running a little long here, but before
Sorry.
we go, no, it's great. Yesterday for Anna's birthday, we had a tribute band for Celia Cruz, the queen of salsa.
And Tito Nieves, who's Puerto Rican.
There we go. She was a really important figure for a lot of people and inspired a lot of women to pursue their dreams. Did you grow up listening to her?
Celia Cruz was on the radio all the time
at
my house.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, because Puerto Ricans also dance salsa. So she's Cuban, but Puerto Ricans definitely claim Celia Cruz. And Tito Nieves, of course. And so I grew up with El Gran Combo and all sorts of, Puerto Rican music. So for me to actually meet Tito Nieves and for him to know who I was
That's great.
I'm still on cloud 9, and my mother immediately texted me and she was like, get a picture with Tito. So I was like, I got one already, Mom. It was wonderful. I mean, I remember even my grandmother, who had a beautiful voice and sang in Puerto Rico, singing, or saying azúcar, like, which is just translates to sugar, but it was just a huge mantra. It's just she was larger than life.
That was cool. I mean, people don't realize how much work gets put into putting these things together.
I can't believe you guys got Tito
Well,
Nieves.
it was our incredible producers, Summer in particular, worked on this all during the break to get it together for Anna's birthday. And there was just nothing better than coming back to that.
Oh, my
gosh. To ease your re-entry.
And I think Anna really enjoyed it.
I think so, too.
I think she really, really enjoyed it. And that cake she had.
That looked good.
I'm going to order that.
Yeah?
You know that I took Sarah's, too. I took mine and I took Sarah's home.
Alyssa's fell on the floor. Do you remember that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she dropped hers on the floor.
It was so delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna order that cake. It was really good. We ate it at my house last night.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, Sonny.
Thank you, Brian.
Tomorrow I'll be back with Joy Behar. That'll be fun. We want to hear from you, so check our episode description to send us questions for me or for the co-hosts. We had some for you today, but we'll save it for next week.
Okay.
And we'll see you tomorrow.